Hey there, it's Girish. This is episode 24 and a special one at that. Number 24 as a tribute to Kobe Bryant and all the people like him, heroes who inspire us every day. A warm welcome to the Mission Junior podcast. I'm your host, Girish Shivakumar. As I was preparing another story for this week's release, I realized it was episode number 24. So I made another plan to talk about people who have inspired us to do what we do. By the way, number 24 is a jersey worn by Kobe Bryant for most part of his career. Well, I believe we are all inspired by someone. We always look for motivation from someone's action. It could be anybody, a sports star, a teacher, friend, anyone. We all look up to someone from time to time. This episode is a tribute to all such heroes in our life. Again, for me, I have a few idols who I have followed right through growing up and even now. Most of them are sports stars. Kobe was right at the top. His attitude, the Mamba mentality of putting in the work every day, day in, day out, and taking on the challenges motivates me even now. The other reason is, you see, it's been nearly 10 months since I started the podcast, my second one, and I felt it's good to take a pause and reflect on the journey so far. So I asked a few fundamental questions all over again. Why did I start the podcast? How did Mission Junior begin? And so on. Yes, in the last year, the number of listeners have gone up. More people download the episode every week. New listeners would go back and check the archives as well. And yes, those social media channels of Mission Junior also get new listeners to the show. I had a strong belief about podcast, especially the type of content I wanted to create. And it was a little different from when I started podcast in the first place. So, am I on the right side of where I wanted to be? I can say I had three big reasons to why I wanted to start a podcast. Number one, I love my work. I really enjoy the work that I do. Being in the clean tech space for 9 years, I started with Mission Junior in a different form when I started blogging about it with the name of Full Circle in about 2012. Shunya means zero in the Indian language of Sanskrit, and by now you would probably realize that I cover all topics that enable us to transition to the zero carbon economy. Number two, I believe this transition happens through a collective effort, a collaboration of people and ideas. It needs an inspired and motivated soul to pass on the message and get more people involved. So podcast, blog, and all the activities online and offline help in this regard. If you remember, I regularly ask you to share the episode to 3 people. Just 3 people every time would help in the long run. So again, at the end of this episode, if you like the episode and the theme, I would again encourage you to spread the message to 3 people every week. And reason number 3, I meet people around me who are pretty good at their work. They are pretty good at what they do and are really excited to spread the positive vibe. They have amazing stories to share and have a big influence on the future of our planet. And I definitely want to bring these stories to you. So now, if you feel that I haven't done justice to my 3 reasons, well, do let me know. Feedback is appreciated as always. missionjunior@gmail.com is the email ID. You can also get in touch on the social media channels or through the web page missionjunior.com. The 3 reasons again. Number 1, I enjoy my work. Number 2, I believe that the future of the planet is ours to change. And 3, I can bring amazing stories to you to get motivated. Talking of amazing stories and the inspiration behind them, what is it that inspires and motivates people to do what they do? I mean, you have to admit that the fact that the work done in the space at this point in time, challenging the status quo is really hard. You really need that extra motivation to push your limits and get going. So as a tribute to all the people who inspire our work and motivate us, let's listen in to a few stories from our guest whose work was featured in the previous podcast episodes. Listen in as they share the reason on why they got started or their intrinsic motivations. Let's begin with Shailaja Rangarajan, who shares a motivation on creating better urban spaces by upcycling.
Reimagine actually is an outcome of my earlier voluntary work. So before I got involved with anything to do with waste, I was part of the corporate industry working as a business process consultant. Around 7-8 years ago in our apartment complex, a team of us, we thought, why don't we look at waste segregation and handling of waste in house? So this was at a time when people were just waking up to the concept of waste, even in Bangalore. So we were four volunteers who said, okay, we will take it upon ourselves to figure out what waste management process can be set up in our apartment complex. So this involved a lot of self-reading and self-learning as well through trial and error when we put in a waste management process in place. It was like segregation of waste, in-house composting of waste, and partnering with a responsible vendor who can handle our waste, etc. And as I started learning more and more about it, and this also took me beyond the four walls of my apartment complex. And then I started doing voluntary work over the weekends, trying to help other apartment complexes also handle their waste, training the housekeeping staff, creating more awareness about waste and everything. Then this went beyond, and then I started collaborating with BBMP to set up the required infrastructure and also for the pickup process of waste from a door to door angle. So, as and when I got involved and literally started getting my hands dirty, I was also walking through mounds of garbage and landfills and the stink and the leachate. Everything was kind of hitting me in my face. Then I started thinking, how come we are having this problem now? I never, as a kid, remembered seeing this kind of waste. That was when it was a wake up call for me. Here I'm going about telling people segregate waste, handle your waste responsibly, and all. But is that enough? Are we not slowly killing the environment? And the reason was it's very simple. Because of our consumption lifestyle, it all zeroed in on that. The way we consume, because of excess affordability, the use and throw culture has kind of set in unknowingly. And aspirational living also is now a way of life for us, where we want more and the latest of everything. Then I told myself, so as long as we are just segregating waste and continuing to throw out stuff that we don't want to use anymore, we are actually not doing any good. So ideally, I would want to tell people just don't buy unless you really need it. And if you have to buy, look at other alternatives where we don't consume virgin resources. Well, it all sounds fine, but I also knew that nobody would take me seriously because it's a very, very idealistic way of living. That's when the idea of upcycling struck me because that is actually nothing but the traditional Indian lifestyle where we constantly repurpose material that we don't need. And instead of just going and buying stuff that we need, we see, okay, can we figure out something or figure out a way of reusing something that we already have in the house instead of going and buying something? And that is what is upcycling, a phrase that has been coined by the West, but has been an intrinsic Indian lifestyle. And from that thought was how Reimagined came into being, where it was launched 3 years ago as a platform to promote upcycling as part of mainstream everyday consumption.
You can listen to our full story on episode 8. Following up on that story, I featured another woman entrepreneur, Padmashri Balaram, on episode 22. Padmashri helped set up a waste to energy power plant. But how did she get started? Was it a career choice? What was her motivation?
It had very little to do with the career, but more to do with being a mother. I used to find that my children were wheezing and coughing without a reason, and I soon discovered that it was because of the large amounts of garbage that was collecting at every part around my house, and so that became my mission because being a biochemist in my education, I felt that the all the smells, the insects, the general problem with the garbage is what is bothering my children. So I decided to take on the waste, not so much processing, but just getting rid of the waste as such. That's how it started, and it was very organic from there onwards.
Padmashri wanted to do it for her children and thus began her story. I also featured Ayush Jha, who went the other way around and found an inspiration. Let's listen in.
So I'm from Bhilai, that's in central India. It's a fairly green place, a lot of trees around. So we never really had air pollution as a problem. And my father's also born there, and he had to move to Delhi. He got a promotion and he moved to Delhi in the corporate office. When he did in 2016, there was a massive smog hit weeks, actually, not just days in NCR. That was probably the first time media really took air pollution seriously. And unfortunately for us, my father was there. And we've been, as a family, we've been, very focused on, doing yoga and working out, etc. And my father continued that habit. And he went out to, do some workout in the morning, and he got really, really sick. In fact, he was admitted in the hospital for 4 days. So, we got worried. We spoke to the doctors, and they said it's because of bad air. He had very, very bad chest ache. He had wheezing. So it was just not a good situation to be in. What would, a knee-jerk reaction be in this situation? We understand air pollution is a problem, and indoor air pollution can be 3 or 5x worse than outside. So let's obviously look at indoor air pollution, right? And what anyone would do is exactly what I did. I went ahead, bought a 15,000 rupee air purifier, and installed it in my home. It was a government quarter, a regular 3 BHK. And I didn't know that we would need like 5 air purifiers. I just bought one because that's what my common sense said. And still the problem persisted. He still had those chest problems and all the issues which I told you about. And it was really sad. And so I could see my dad struggling with this, and slowly started hitting me and my mother as well. So I researched on this, and I realized that an air purifier can only clean around 300 square feet. That's roughly one bedroom. What about a 1500 square feet home? You'll need probably 4 or 5 of them. Now, if you're talking about, say, a 15,000 rupee regular purifier, we're talking about putting in 60,000-70,000 rupees in just buying purifiers. And then again, you'll have to change the filters in the next 4 to 5 months. So this was a fairly daunting cost overall, right? For the average middle class guy, say 70,000 rupees is quite steep. And I realized, wow, this is a massive problem. So instead of going ahead and buying multiple purifiers, I thought, let's reverse engineer this purifier. What is it? So I opened the purifier, and it literally is such low tech, Girish. It's so sad that it's for 15,000. It's actually just a filter strapped with a fan. That's what a air purifier is. That's it. A fan and a filter.
Interesting.
So how can it be worth 15,000? You get smartphones which are like supercomputers for 15,000, and this is such low tech. It's a fan and a filter worth 15,000. I started researching on it, and I realized that there have been people who've done some hacks on making air purifiers really cheap. So what they've done is they've strapped a regular exhaust fan with a filter. And they are retailing those purifiers for around 3,000 rupees. And I was like, wow, this is something, man. This is great. This is super. And I wondered, can the price of this sort of a purifier even go down? And we did a little bit of research, and I was in Delhi then, right? So in Delhi, all your bedrooms have air conditioners. I thought, can we do something about this? Can we have purification with an AC? So for purification to happen, you need the airflow to be in a restricted way. You can't purify air using a ceiling fan. It can be done in a closed box. So ACs were the obvious next choice. So that's where Clearco kind of the basic thought of Clearco came in.
You can listen to the full story on episode 17. And the solar man from India, Dr. Chaitanya Singh Solanki, shared his journey on episode 11. The Gandhi Global Solar Yatra was a movement that he started. Incidentally, he has also started a new movement called Energy Swaraj. What is it and who was his inspiration?
So this idea of Energy Swaraj, like Gandhiji's Gram Swaraj, I believe is a very, very powerful idea and should be adopted not at one place but everywhere in the world, irrespective of whether it is a developing country or developed country, irrespective of the place whether there is electricity connection or no electricity connection. Everyone has to adopt this idea. So let us begin this movement of Energy Swaraj, and I'm calling it movement because until unless everyone joins it, it will be difficult for us to get a reversal of a climate change.
And talking of inspiration, I had 2 guests who were inspired by nature. Here's the bit from episode 18 featuring Neil Matthews. Listen in to why he enjoys his lifestyle and what is real happiness according to him.
I like all the things natural around me, even though I am in a city, and I would like to have all kind of animals, everything around in the ecosystem we are living in. Of course, there is a little bit of learning and practices you need. For example, when the entire area people are putting fire to the grass, and when my plot is having water presence, it is a tendency that almost all type of snakes come to this plot. We learned how to live with that. Even our we can detect our adopted dog from the road. Yeah, when he barks, we know there is a snake in front of him because he makes a sound to reverberate on the floor. So like that, you have to adapt to the ecosystem to live with it, but it is very enjoyable. Like you need more than 24 hours to finish observing things around this. So that's the enjoyment part of it. So the thing is, being a complete sense means like I am actually showing a model to my children, their friends, their schools, colleges, and to the society. That way I am leading a silent revolution. That being knowing that is a big happiness.
And then, during the discussions on the Amazon rainforest wildfires, I had to ask then renowned global environmentalist Tony Juniper on his inspiration to get into environmental conservation.
I began my interest in all of this at a very, very early age, actually. The first things I can remember as a small child is being interested in plants and in animals, and that interest grew into a passion for natural history, to go and look for birds, to understand how nature works, to have a passion for fossils and plants and rivers and fish, and all of these things that have stayed with me all of my life. And as one takes an interest in the natural world, of course, you can't help but be aware of what's happening to it. And so that love of nature then turns into a concern and a willingness and passion to be involved in conservation. And that's really where life took me. I had a period at university studying a zoology degree initially, and that led me into the choice of whether I would like to pursue a career in research or whether I would like to join the conservation world. And I did the latter, and have spent the last 35 years, therefore, working on all of these subjects. And, I think we've seen some progress over time. We have an awful lot more to do. But at least we have made a good start in getting people to understand the implications of some of this stuff.
Again, that was an amazing story. You can listen to the full story on episode 20. And finally, I have to mention about the community that I'm part of, the Sustainability Mafia. Well, what can I say about the community? Every day we help each other out and move forward. The stories of every individual in the group is an interesting one in itself. You can listen to what we do by checking episode 13. But one part of the conversation where Ganesh Shankar emphasizes on the need to be the change we want to see is worth a listen. Here's that part.
So one day, a lady came to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa with a boy and told, my son eats lot of sweets, and if you tell him to reduce on it or cut down on it, he would probably do that. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa told the lady, can you come after 15 days? Vivekananda was sitting just beside him. He observed this. The lady came after 15 days. And then Ramakrishna Paramahamsa took the boy on his lap and told, please stop having so much sweets. It will affect your teeth and you will have a lot of problems later on in your life. So please, why don't you stop eating so much sweets? The boy actually listened to him and told, okay, I'll reduce my eating sweets. And the lady and the boy left. Vivekananda asked Ramakrishna Paramahamsa curiously, you could have told the same thing 15 days back. Why did you tell now? I mean, we could have told it before. No. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa told that 15 days back, even I was eating a lot of sweets. And I had to control that eating, and I've reduced my eating sweet. Now I can tell the boy. So this goes with all of us. I mean, sustainability is very important. It is about what are we practicing today that we can actually tell it to others and they can promote. So it should start from ourselves. And this story of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa has actually compelled me to take more action in my life on sustainability, and so would I tell to others. So please think of what you could do if you are in the field of sustainability for yourself, and why don't you share it with others, whether it is about having a half a bucket water, or water for your shower, or to have for bathing, or using a mug of water for cleaning, I mean, brushing your teeth. There are so many other things, small things, fixes that we can do to make sustainability a kind of a default choice.
So, yes, those were the snippets I could put in this episode number 24 as a tribute to Kobe Bryant and all the heroes who inspire and motivate us. Listening to the stories I covered so far all over again has motivated me an extra bit. I hope you were moved by the stories as well. I would encourage you to check the complete podcast episodes and give me some feedback and help spread the word. If you know of someone who does interesting work in any corner of the world, put me in touch, let me hear their story and help spread the word. Coming up on episode 25, a special guest again. He has an interesting story also. A person who is very passionate about what he does. Want to know more? Subscribe now and stay tuned. Once again, being inspired is what drives our work today. Let's hope that our work inspires someone tomorrow. Thank you for listening. Signing off, this is Mission Shunya, towards a zero carbon economy.